Kyle Cowan se boek Sabotage, Eskom Under Siege, het pas verskyn. Dit bied 'n blik op die stryd wat die ryter en sy span veg om die land se ligte te probeer aanhou. Ook Antoinette Slabbert sluit by my aan. Sy is 'n seniorjoernalis by Rapport en dek gereeld Eskom nuus. Kyle, so jy skryf in die boek oor 'n geveg wat die ryter gehad het met betrekking tot 'n 18 miljard rand tender. Hy sê dit was sy eerste veldslag. Vertel ons meer daarvan.
You know, within 5 days of Mr. Director arriving at Eskom, he attends his first board subcommittee meeting and he sees information about a tender and they want to increase the price from 14 billion to 18 billion. Within a couple of minutes, he already noticed that things were not right and he noted down some questions and very quickly picked up that something about this tender was off. This would lead to his first major fight at Eskom within just a few weeks of arriving there. And he would clash with, you know, the chairperson of the Investment and Finance Committee, Mr. Sifiso Debengwa, who, by all accounts, just simply said to him, "This is the way we do things, and you'll understand in time." But, you know, Mr. Director put his foot down and stopped that tender from going ahead.
Ek wil net bietjie stil staan by die titel van die boek, Sabotage. Daar was in die afgelope tyd 4 insidente van sabotasie by Eskom. Weet ons wie dit doen, maar jy skryf tog ons weet wie baat daarbij.
We don't know who the actual perpetrators are. It's extremely difficult to police these power stations. These are very big things. They are enormous. There are lots of people moving around all the time. Anyone can walk past something and cut it within, you know, less than a minute if they planned it properly. So it's extremely difficult to try and nail down any one specific person. There are, of course, investigations that can be done by the police to try and understand what's going on here. At Hendrina, for example, someone walked into the turbine hall at Hendrina, which is an area of the plant that access is restricted. No one can just walk in there. And they managed to steal parts of 3 of the generators inside Hendrina with no one noticing until the next morning.
Jy skryf ook oor hoe die ryter sê hierdie uitdaging wat hy het, is so sy tweede diensplig, asof hy weer in die weermag is. Wat sê dit vir ons van sy ingesteldheid?
It's war. Effectively, what Andre de Ruyter and his executive team have walked into is a war on corruption. It is a war on extraction networks. It's a political war. It's a policy war. Every single thing about Eskom is a struggle. You know, when I spoke to Mr. de Ruyter, he said to me that this is a task of Sisyphean proportions. And it really is, because what he is trying to do is he is trying to right the ship while it's sinking. It's trying to build the aeroplane while it's flying. And it's basically impossible, because what the book details and what I try and set out is not only that sabotage in terms of physically damaging units, but from the moment that he arrived there, the sabotage has been, you know, complaints of racism or allegations of him treating black-owned suppliers differently to the way he treats white-owned suppliers, or, you know, he's done this improperly, or he's misleading the board. There's been very little time for Mr. de Ruyter and his team to settle in and actually focus on the job.
Antoinette, as ons net nou bly by fisiese sabotasie, wie sal die drade wil knip by Eskom?
Lorenza, as drade geknip is, moet dit weer reggemaak word. So in baie gevalle sien 'n mens dat iets gebreek word sodat daar 'n kontrak toegeken moet word aan iemand om dit weer reg te maak. Dit klink net te erg om waar te wees dat mense die hele land se ekonomie in die spel plaas om 'n kontrak te kry vir 6 maande of 'n jaar om 'n ding reg te maak of 'n diens te lewer wat nou, jy weet wat nou val. Maar dit is regtig wat gebeur. En daar's syndikaate. En dan is daar baie wyd gevestigde belange. Jy weet, nog lank voor staatskaping aan die lig gekom het ek die gevoel gehad dat daar nie 'n pen of 'n stukkie papier of 'n bekertjie of 'n draadjie by Eskom is wat nie 10 of 20 keer meer kos as wat hy behoort te wees nie. Dat daar omtrent nie 'n werknemer is wat nie 3 of 4 vingers in die paai het met hierdie tipe van ding nie. Dit gaan, dink ek, baie weier as staatskaping. Dis mense wat gevestigde belange het. As jy gewoond was daaraan om R100,000 of R300,000 op 'n gereelde basis ekstra te kry, boonbehalwe jou salaris. Jou salaris is eintlik nie jou inkomste nie, jou salaris is jou toegang om stelsels te manipuleer sodat jy jou eintlike inkomste kan genereer. As dit jou situasie was, en hier kom nou 'n paar manne wat dit wil uitroei, dan veg jy terug.
Maar gepraat van terugveg, die ryter beplan 'n krisisberaad later die maand. Wat verwag ons gaan daar gebeur?
Ja, dit is baie interessant. Dit is nou nog nie wyd bekend nie. Ons het bewus geraak daarvan. Dit lyk vir my asof die ryter, wel, hy het dit eintlik al gesê, hy besef wat gedoen moet word, maar sy hande is vasgebind. Onthou, Eskom, ek wil dit eintlik vergelyk met 'n trein. Hulle het 'n klomp trokke en hulle moet iets gaan aflewer by die eindverbruiker. Hulle het die steenkool, hulle het die masjinis, maar hulle het nie die lokomotief nie. Ek wil die voorbeeld gebruik om te sê, hulle het die kragstasies, maar die kragstasies werk nie. Hulle moet nuwe kragstasies kry, maar dis nie in hulle mag om daai kragstasies wat hulle moet bedryf te bou nie. Die departement van mineraal en energie moet dit doen. Of jy weet, moet die bal aan die rol sit daarvoor. So ek dink wat hulle probeer doen is om wyd steun te kry vir hierdie plan wat op die ou end gaan uitloop op die bou van 'n klomp nuwe opwekkingsvermoë en dan daai geweldige klomp steun te gebruik om verby die struikelblokke te kry wat daar binne die regering is teen die uitvoering van hierdie tipe van goed wat gedoen moet word.
Kyle, dit blyk daarom dat die ryter en sy span politieke ondersteuning geniet, maar kan mens ooit sê hy's veilig en voel hy self veilig?
Ek dink dit is 'n moeilike een om te praat, to speak on his behalf, jy weet. Maar to me, it's been very clear that I think Eskom CEOs are an endangered species. He's the 10th person to hold that job in as many years, and so far, he's 2.5 years in almost now. He's the longest lasting since 2007. So it's going well, I think, so far in terms of, creating some form of stability at the top, because you need to have some form of continuity before the ship can start righting itself. But I don't think that it's going to be permanent. For example, and I also refer to this in the book, he can be earning a lot more money elsewhere with a lot less stress and a lot less problems in his life and a lot less threat to his personal safety.
Antoinette, so al hierdie uitdagings nou in ag geneem, ons weet beerdkrag is in ons voorland. Die jaar skets vir ons die scenario's van presies wat ons moet verwag.
Lorenza, Eskom gee altyd vir ons 3 scenario's wanneer hulle nou voorligting doen. Die basis scenario waar hulle sê 12.000 megawatt se opwekkingsvermoë is onklaar, en dan 'n bietjie meer, en die grootste een is dan tot 15.000. Dis nou die ergste scenario. En hulle het gesê, in hierdie boekjaar, dis van die 1 April af tot 31 Maart volgende jaar, is daar volgens die slegste scenario, dink hulle, so 295 dae beerdkrag. Dis nie noodwendig die hele dag nie, soos ons nou al gesien het, maar dit beteken eintlik net 2 uit elke 10 dae gaan ons ten volle krag hê, volgens daai scenario. En tot dusver oorskry ons die scenario. Hulle het byvoorbeeld vir April gesê die hoogste vlak van beerdkrag verwag hulle gaan fase 2 wees, en in Mei maand fase 3, en in April en Mei was dit fase 4 by geleentheid. Hulle het in Mei maand 22 dae beerdkrag voorspel. Ek dink ons is nou by 26 dae het ons geëindig. So dit gaan erger wees as hulle swakste scenario. Dit gaan rof gaan.
Ons weet die ryter en sy span het 'n reuse taak op hande, maar doen hy en sy span werklik genoeg om daai skip om te draai?
I believe they are. Having looked at this issue very closely for the past year and a half, I think that they're truly trying. But as Antoinette alluded to earlier, his hands are bound. He can't procure the way he needs to. He can't hire and fire the way he needs to. We must remember that Eskom is a government entity, and if it was in the private sector, things would have probably not been going as bad as they are, because he would have a lot more power to try and bring in experts, to try and bring in people that actually know what they're doing. And with all due respect to people who work at Eskom, and people will tell you, oh, they know what they're doing and they're very good at their jobs. Well, frankly, they're not. Because if you look at the state that these power stations are in and what has been allowed to happen to these power stations over the past 15 years, the good people have all gone. There's a skills crisis at Eskom. And if it was in the private sector, that could be rectified within months. But because it's a government entity, there needs to be a whole lot of mediation and discussion and, frankly, time that the country doesn't have.
No, certainly not. Kyle, Antoinette, baie dankie. Bly ingeskakel, ons kieswet moet verander, maar die politici het op hulle hande bly sit. Nou is daar kommer dat 2024 se verkiesing uitgestel kan word. En is private kragopwekking die antwoord op die Goudstad se elektrisiteitskrisis? Ek het by die burgemeester gaan uitvind, sien julle net hierna.